We've all been there or know someone who has. You work hard, you deliver results, and expect to move up only to see someone else get the job. It's frustrating, it's disheartening, but here's the good news. A setback like this doesn't have to derail your career. In fact, it can become a stepping stone to something even greater. Today, we'll talk about promotions, why they get missed, how to turn the disappointment into an opportunity to build your career capital, and actionable strategies to position yourself for future success. We'll hear from our guest, Yusra Ahmed, who not long ago was riding the wave as a career professional in real estate. She's navigated many career challenges along the way, and she will share her insights on how to bounce back stronger. Welcome to Your Last Potato, the podcast where we explore how to grow your skills, navigate challenges, and thrive in your professional journey. I'm your host, Abdurrahman, and today we're tackling a tough but all too common experience, being passed over for a promotion. But first things first, I'd like to welcome Yusra. Welcome. I'm so happy to see you here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So what can I tell you about myself? Well, I'll start off by telling you about what I actually do. Maybe that'll be helpful. So I completely fell into my career. Let's not count the decades, but let's say that there are multiple. I started within the corporate real estate department. And just by virtue of saying yes a few too many times when I was offered certain things, I ended up moving into or naturally progressing into technology, ending up in data analytics function until I moved into, and I'll save you all the steps that got me there, but I ended up growing and developing a data analytics function across EMEA, and then moving into a data-focused role, which was a global head of data role within that organization. And then after planting that potato, I decided that I was going to get out and start up on my own and build my own data consultancy. And so this is my last potato.
I'm so excited for you and I'm cheering you on. And I know it's not an easy thing to do and it's a scary thing to do.
I mean, it was scary, but I'll be honest, some of the stuff that you spoke about just now are reasons for me to take that, initiative and just go out on my own and seeing if I can make it on my own. Because the reality is that being passed up for promotion, feeling some kind of way about, what you feel you've contributed versus how you're perceived. If there is a disconnect there, it can be particularly heartening. But as you say, it can also be incredibly motivating and help, propel you into where you want to go next. You see where you land, right? Why not? What have you got to lose, really?
Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'd been through a similar experience recently. And so, after the kind of confusion and feeling like, oh my God, what went wrong? I thought I did everything right. Then I got to the stage of, okay, now what's the next step? Next step, research. So I jumped online and I did a little bit of Googling on just some key themes about why promotions don't always go as planned. So here is what Google threw back at me. So some common reasons for being passed over. And tell me if these sort of resonate with you. Lack of visibility. You may be delivering great work, but if leadership doesn't see your contributions, it's easy to be overlooked. The second one is skills gap. Promotions often require skills you may not have demonstrated yet, such as leadership, strategic thinking, or cross-departmental collaboration. But I mean, especially if you've been working hard for a very long time, like years, and you've had a coach and a mentor, and you've been targeting and heading to that specific role, it could still feel like an excuse that's used to put you at bay in a way. And the third, which is the most likely and most occurring for me from my perspective, politics and perceptions. Sometimes office dynamics or favoritism can influence decisions, which feels unfair, but it is a reality in many workplaces. So yeah, what's your first thoughts about that?
Honestly, I think all of them resonate quite a lot. I think where it relates to the second one with regards to the skills, definitely the reality is, and you and I know this, right? We've both worked in corporate, in very structured corporate environments. And the reality is that for you to be promoted into a position, you have to be operating at that level already. I think when I was at the start of my career, I used to think, well, I get promoted and then I learn the job while I'm on it. Well, the reality is that doesn't work. right? If you want to be a director, you have to be a director first, and then they'll give you the title after the fact. So I definitely think there's something in that skills piece. And some people can be lacking one or the other skills. Like it's very difficult to find people who are a wonderful balance between soft skills and technical skills. Certainly in the field that I play in, you can either find someone who is incredibly technical but couldn't speak to a business person or certainly a senior person to save their lives, or vice versa. They're very business focused, but perhaps they're not able to translate some of that into some tangible technical skills that will help drive them. So I see that. When I reflect on the 3 points that you say, though, I'm kind of thinking about it throughout my whole career. When I first started, I would say probably for the majority of my career, what I didn't realize is the importance of the people that I had around me. And I had a really strong mentorship base. These were not people that I went and sought. They're just sort of people that appeared along the way, managers, senior leaders, execs, that sort of adopted me as I was coming up the ladder, and they helped me a lot. And it makes me reflect on this one TED Talk that I was listening to, and it was this lady, I can't remember her name, but she said, make sure that you always have someone that can vouch for you or fight for you when you're not in the room. And I definitely had that. What I did tend to find, and nowadays, I haven't invested as much into building that mentor base. I say that in the sense of you can't and shouldn't have the same mentor for your whole life, because you need someone to give you some specific things at certain parts, and you can definitely outgrow a mentor. What I haven't done is I haven't found a replacement recently. And I think that's what created that exposure for me. And when I started to experience some challenges with getting promotions, I would definitely correlate it to the absence of that strong mentor, that strong sponsor that vouches for me, goes and fights on my behalf without me even asking. That person that remembers my name when an opportunity comes up in the right context. If I were to give one piece of advice to anybody, make sure that you create relationships. And I'm talking about being authentic. I'm not talking about inauthentic scaling and land grabbing and attention buying. I'm talking about authentically going and finding people that you respect, that you find inspirational, that you like their style and how they do things, and try to learn from them, build a relationship with them. Once you build that relationship, you're going to present your best foot. And that's the person that's going to help kind of drive you forward. It's incredibly helpful if they're also within your organization, within your sector or something adjacent, but obviously you're limited by what you have in front of you. What I would say though is that try as much as possible to widen that network. And I'm definitely trying to do that, is to go out there and meet people from different areas and expand my perspective and my mind. But I would say that's probably hands down one of the most important things, is to have that sponsorship and that mentorship in the background.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you next is, how do you go about doing that? How do you go about finding a mentor? And I guess also it's not just about finding anybody, as you say, it's building a meaningful relationship. It's almost like having like a click with that person. What are your tips?
So there's a few things that I'd say. The first thing is it's wonderful to just look up in your organization and see the leaders around you and who you want to connect with. I've certainly had it done to me where I've had more junior members come up to me and say, hey, I really like you. Can you mentor me? But go with a plan if you're going to do that, because otherwise it kind of falls flat on its face. So that's one tip. The second thing is working your network. So you can ask people that you trust, see who they have in their networks that they would recommend. I've recently actually, through that process, acquired a number of different business mentors for my business, and they've been incredibly helpful. Again, it was because it's through your network, therefore it's people that you get on with, you like, and therefore the likelihood that their extended network is also going to vibe with you, the likelihood is much higher. I would say that's another way, through recommendations. And then the third way is just put yourself out there. Go to events, use your LinkedIn. I've actually done this myself. I've just gone on LinkedIn, seen people who sound really interesting, maybe I like something that they posted somewhere, I'll just connect with them and see what comes out of that. I've asked them to meet me for a coffee, a virtual coffee or an in-person coffee. You never know who you're actually going to meet. And I'll tell you that 9 times out of 10, if not even 10 times out of 10, if you go with the approach that I'm open, I want to hear something or learn something, you will always have an interesting conversation. It might not necessarily be useful in that moment, but there has never been a time where I've reached out to someone and said, hey, can we just connect? I want to hear your thoughts, and had that coffee, that I haven't learned something that I didn't know before and came useful at some point in the future. In a way, I could be harsh and say you have to get over yourself and get over the, oh no, I can't reach out to someone, or I can't ask someone to mentor me. You have to put yourself in a position where you're learning, and therefore you're reaching out to someone and genuinely saying, hey, I really want to hear what you think. I'm open to listening to what you say and see if there's a click, right?
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that. Actually, a few years ago, I was in a complete rut with my job. It wasn't the right fit, and I went and I heard this lady talk at a town hall. I just thought she was amazing. So I looked her up on our internal directory of people within the organization, and I just reached out to her. And a few months later, it kind of worked out that she had a position. I actually ended up working in her department, not directly for her, but for somebody else. And I stayed in that job for like 3 years. And then after that, actually, when I started looking at developing further and looking for opportunities that would move me up the ladder, she heard I was looking and she reached out to me. And that's kind of how I got my current role, which I've been in now a couple of years too. So these connections can definitely be very long lasting, fruitful, and definitely unexpected. I mean, just from attending, a town hall and just being proactive and reaching out. I mean, I was, of course, nervous about it, but I just thought, yeah, hey, what's the worst that could happen, eh?
The thing is, as well, is that when someone reaches out to you and genuinely is inspired by something that you said, it takes a special kind of person not to feel complimented or humbled by like an expression like that. For someone to compliment you on your thought process and the way you articulate yourself, I think that's one of the biggest compliments you can give someone. So
yeah, and such a good point about if people don't reach out, that's clearly like it's not really worth your time, right? So you just carry on, keep moving on, and you will run into those people who appreciate your effort.
Well, they always say, don't they, is you're never going to win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket.
Yeah, exactly. I have actually some statistics I've found through my research. So it's all about what is the impact of some of these setbacks that you could have. So early career setbacks and future impact. It's a study by Wang, Jones, and Wang, and it was done in 2019. It examined scientists who narrowly missed receiving grants from the National Institute of Health in the US. And then the findings basically revealed that those who experienced early career setbacks often outperformed their peers in the long run, suggesting that overcoming challenges can enhance resilience and drive. There's another one also about gender differences in promotion outcomes. Research from MIT Sloan highlights that men who are passed over 4 promotions are 35 to 40% more likely to leave their jobs compared to women. So women stay in their job. This indicates that women may exhibit greater resilience in the face of such setbacks, underscoring the importance perseverance. And this is from the MIT Sloan School of Management. That's so interesting.
It's interesting, but there is an element in that last point that makes me feel a little bit like this is one of those confusion between correlation and causation, right? Is what do women really stay because they are more resilient, or do they stay because we are trained and molded to expect less than a man and to take more of this type of behavior than a man? And I say that because being kind of working in real estate and technology, right? So it's real estate technology, essentially. These are 2 individually very male-dominated industries. And the intersection of those means that they're even more male-dominated, right? And so what I see is that a lot of my male colleagues, male friends, they accept, like, let's say their boundaries or their ability to accept kind of bad behavior or bad treatment their barrier is a lot lower than certainly me and other women that I've seen. And I've had it in situations where, now I'll tell you candidly, there was one particular meeting I was in and I didn't even notice anything was going on. I was just like carrying on this meeting with a group of people. And one of my friends, he was an older gentleman, so he was probably like 30 years older than me, started messaging me during the meeting. And he said, how are you standing this level of disrespect? Like, why are you allowing them to talk to you like that? And I genuinely just, it was really shocking to me because for me, it was all going over my head. I was like, well, this is just the way that I get treated. This is just the way that people, behave. And it was really surprising to me because he ended up leaving the organization much sooner than I did. I mean, I did a 5-year tenure. He lasted 1.5 years, something along those lines, because he couldn't take the disrespect. And so when I say to you, I would question the reasoning, because the other thing that women don't do is that as much as there is all of this female empowerment and, we are much more vocal about our reasons, the reality is that we know this, right? We talk to each other about certain things in the background, but do we do those exit interviews and are truly honest about why we left? I definitely think women are very resilient, but I think that their reasons may be slightly different. It could be that it's that they need the extra money. They're worried about finding an alternative role. They haven't found a promotion. They may be beaten down so much to think that this is as far as they're going to get. I don't think it's always just a case of, resilience.
I think to a certain extent, maybe we are generalizing a little bit, but of course there is some kind of red thread that you see constantly in these types of situations between how women react in the workplace to, I guess, toxicity. It is toxic behavior. It should not be accepted. And unfortunately, in some organizations, there is this idea that somehow you're showing power. People are going to follow you and do as you say because, you have the strength, but it isn't. It isn't. It's just being rude. There's a lot of things around that associated also with the culture of the organization, the culture of the team, the senior people who were in that meeting. Why didn't anybody get up and say something, And that's something I actually try to do more often. If I see somebody bullying someone else in a meeting, I will tell them exactly how I feel, that it's inappropriate. And if there is no respect in the call, we can finish it and start another day. So I've become a lot more, I would say, confident in that I can handle the reactions. Oh, you're too sensitive. Oh, you need to have thicker skin. Oh, this or that. And when I was the younger version of me, would definitely be quiet and not say anything. And I'm just nervous that I have this job. Oh my God, I'm so grateful for it. To the point where I didn't even really ask for raises. I would go into these meetings and just be so grateful that, I got par with inflation. You know what I mean? Now, as I've gotten older and a bit wiser, maybe a lot more experience, I feel empowered. I also know my topic very well. And I have a good network around me that will support me because they know how I am, how I work. And that comes with time as well. Okay, so how do you prepare for the next opportunity? So there's a couple of tips here. Before reacting, you take a step back, reflect and ask yourself, what feedback have I received about my performance or skills? Were there specific qualifications or experiences I lacked? And did I clearly communicate my interest in the role? Then the next step is to seek constructive feedback. So approach your manager or HR, but you cannot be frustrated and be like, what the hell? And so it kind of in a very nice and professional tone and manner, you say, I'd like to understand what went into this decision for this promotion. Can I get a better understanding of what happened? Are there future opportunities? So you come across as sort of being open and still hardworking and committed to your organization and to your job. And then the third, build the missing skills. I have quite a few tips and tools later about that, building skills, and that really goes into the idea of building your career capital. So basically, you use the feedback that you get from HR, from your manager, from colleagues that work with you, and then you basically identify areas for your development if you still want to seek an opportunity in that specific role, or see where you want to head. Maybe this wasn't really the thing for you. Maybe the universe is trying to tell you something. So it's an opportunity to find something new. And then, of course, going back to everything that you said about strengthening relationships. So what do you think about that? And how does that relate to your experience or experiences in the past in relation to being passed over for promotions?
I mean, I really like those tips because I think that they're super practical and they are super clear. And there are steps that you can, like tangible steps that you can take. But what I would say is that before you even get there, don't internalize it. We put everything of ourselves into our careers and turned it almost into our personalities. And so when these setbacks come, it's like a personal attack on you as a human being and your ability and your, it's like a statement on your worthiness as a person. So I would say that the first thing that I've been trying to unwind myself is the two people that I am. There is the Yusra at work, and success and failure is part and parcel of that game, because really it is a game, right? It's not real life. And then there is the Yusra outside of that, who is just a human being and succeeding or failing in academic or in a career kind of structured mechanism. It doesn't say anything about the human being that I am, right? I can still be a good person and I could still be, cared for and loved by my family, my friends, etc. So I think it's important to, first of all, divorce those two people. And then you can go into some of these conversations without that emotion, that baggage that says, I'm essentially fighting for my life here, right? And for who I am. And you can actually, if you start to divorce these things, you could be much more strategic, right? Because you can go and apply these tools and then create a strategy and implement an action plan on the back of the feedback you got. Because it might be something as simple as, well, you need to do X, Y, Z, right? You need to hit this financial metric. You need to take this course. You need to, create relationships with these business units. These to me are very actionable things you can achieve, and there's no emotion that's tied to it. But if you go in with the emotion of you're saying that I am a bad person, or I am not a complete person, or I'm not able to achieve something, you're already on the back foot. You've already lost that conversation, right? So that's the only thing I think I would add to what you said. Otherwise, I think those are really strong steps to take.
Can you share a specific kind of situation that's happened to you? What happened? How did it make you feel? How did you respond?
I think that I was very spoiled I'll be honest, in the beginning of my career, because I had some very caring and strong leaders that I worked to. And so when you were saying earlier about going in and asking for salary increases and stuff like that, I'd say for the first half of my career, I didn't have to do any of that. I didn't have to do any of the thinking. I would walk into my PMP session, I'd get a gold star, a pat on the head, and a whole bunch of cash added to my salary, right? That was just how things flowed for me. I was doing well, I was recognized, and I was given opportunities. So I would get, not just promotions as in the title change, but like actual job changes, right? And when opportunities came, I would be the first name that was put out there.
And can I ask, why do you think it was so easy for you at that time? What were you doing?
I wasn't doing anything different. I was consistently performing. I was the same. What was around was different for me was the culture of the organization I was working for and the leadership team that I was working to. They were always very conscious of recognizing and retaining talent. But I would say that was my first organization out of university. And I spent, I think it was in total, maybe like 7-8 years there. And so it really molded me right out the gate. And they were just very good at taking care of people. I used to work crazy hours. There was one period where I worked nonstop for 30 days, just in at 7, leaving at 11 kind of thing.
Not very healthy, but I guess as a grad, you're so passionate about your work. You want to move forward, you want to advance, and people around you are doing the same thing. I mean, that is kind of sadly what it's like.
And it was a team mentality. Like, it wasn't like a forever thing. It was, we were trying to achieve something. And therefore, you knew that this is the deadline to get this done. Everybody was in it together. Nobody was like skiving, or you weren't picking up the slack for someone else. Everyone was really just pushing, and you got recognized for the work that you put in. So that's why the conversations were so easy. It worked as part of the team. You delivered, you helped us achieve our objectives, and therefore, this is what you get back. So it was a very easy mathematical equation at that time. That's why it was easy. And also, like you say, I was a grad, so there was no real politics as part of that. I was still super young. As time went on, and as I grew into more senior roles, obviously it's a smaller pool with a lot more people vying for those positions, but also a lot of just general competition, and that breeds a lot more toxicity. So I was still performing what I thought was very well. And I don't mean to talk numbers, but I got to a stage in my career where I ran my own P&L, and I was making the business a lot of money. And I knew how much I was making. I knew how much effort I was putting in. I knew what my peers were making. And I was seeing everybody else getting those promotions. I was a director, and all my peers who were actually doing not as much as I was, getting managing director titles, getting flown about, and naturally getting their promotions just validated. And I was happy for them. There was absolutely no shade for anybody else. I was super happy for everyone else. But there does come a point where you say, why not me? Like, how much more can I put in? And to answer your question, what did I do? My cup got filled, and I said, I can't take this anymore. And I quit. I knuckled down. And actually there was a runway towards that, because I got made a lot of promises. I was having these conversations saying, where is my promotion? And I would get told, it's coming. You'll get it if you complete this course. Did the course, got like A grade, no promotion. And the thing is, there's a cycle, right? Because this is like, we're talking about 6 months to a year between conversations. So I'd go back and say, well, I did the course and I got a good grade. Where's my promotion? Oh, we'll talk about it next week. Oh, yeah, it's in the works. We're doing a comp review. Oh, yeah, well, you'll get your promotion if you take on this role, or you take on this extra piece of work, or you deliver against this, or you take this team and you transform them. And it got to a point where I was just like, enough.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There could be legitimacy to a lot of these excuses that you're given, and you keep going and you keep pushing forward and you keep delivering. But as you say, it comes to a point where you have to tell yourself, okay, have I had enough? Is there anything more that I could give? Or is this the end for me on this road? And then what really sort of hits the nail is when then your colleagues are given the position that you've been vying for and talking about and pushing towards and delivering for. Then, of course, that tells you right there what you need to do.
There is no two ways about it. It is like, it's heartbreak, right?
I think you said the other day, it's like breaking up with a toxic boyfriend.
It is really like, that's the only way that I can explain it. And that's why for me, after kind of going through that phase of my life, I realized that I can't associate who I am as a person with my career. I have to divorce those two things, because, I've gotten to an age where I can't do that anymore. Like, I can't take that kind of emotional beatings anymore. And actually, I don't think you need to. I think you can perform super well. I think you can achieve your targets. You can even smash those targets without putting so much of your person into that situation. As part of doing that is always have a plan B. So what I was doing for the year before when I quit is I was saving. And what was even more interesting to me is that I was always getting my full bonus and then some. So it never really made sense for me that like I was performing well enough to achieve my full bonus completely without then having done enough to at least be considered for a promotion. And I'm talking about, this is consistent over years, right? So yeah, I think it's a funny one. I think you have to have a real sit down with yourself. Just generally, I think practical steps and actions are really important and really useful, and you have to have that plan. But I think one of the most important things that you can do is to have sit downs with yourself and really wrangle your ego. And I think you'll resonate with this as well. Being in some of those high expectation, high performance environments, it can get so addictive. Listen, I had to do a lot of soul searching about who I am. And I realized I'm one of those personalities that I was the good kid at school. I needed to get the gold star from the teacher. And essentially what I've done is I've just replaced that with the PMP process in a workplace, right? Performance management process. You essentially just get graded every 6 months.
You were comparing a little bit about getting promoted when you were a grad and what you need to deliver at that point in your career versus, when you're sort of midway into a role versus being in a senior position that requires something a little bit different in order to get a promotion.
100% it does. It's very different. But listen, when you get more senior, it's all about how much money you make. Let's just cut through it. It's when you're a grad, it's about delivery. Honestly, when you get more senior, it's how much money you're making the business and how you're building those relationships. They want to see you building a brand outside of that company that attracts people to that company. So the reality is that if you feel like you're doing enough and you can see those results and you're still not achieving it, you need to have a sit down with yourself. And it's funny because with some people, as I was going through this whole transformation and really having these conversations with myself, because I had to do it for the business, and I would say some really harsh things, and it would be so confronting for other people to hear. And for me, it wasn't like that, because the one really important gift I think you could give yourself is to be honest with yourself. I truly believe that now. There's no point in lying to yourself. If it's a case of, listen, your face doesn't fit in this situation, be honest, because that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means be aware of the surroundings or the landscape that you're working in. And maybe your strategy needs to be adjusted a little bit, because what's your end goal? Is your end goal to fit into that situation, or is your end goal to get something out of that situation? And you don't necessarily have to be there for that. It might sound a little scheming. The reality is that focus on what you want out at the end of the day. Why are you actually doing this? Are you doing this for a nice life? Because if you are, a nice life doesn't mean that you have to scale the ladder. But if you're doing this because you're trying to get somewhere or do something, I think your why is really important. And then your why will help you create that strategy that will propel you to where you want to be. But you can't figure out any of that out if you're not honest with yourself about yourself and the environment that you're playing in, essentially, is my view.
And it's exactly what we were talking about earlier, making meaningful steps in your career, thinking carefully about your decisions, because sometimes it can just day after day rolls by and week after week and month after month. And suddenly you're again at the performance review, and suddenly you're, it's bonus day, and suddenly you've been there 5 years and nothing's happened. So it's really important to, like you say, have those conversations with yourself, figure out, what do I want? Where do I want to be? And what steps could I take to get me there? What can I do for myself? You can still deliver. You can still have a healthy lifestyle, have time to be with your family and friends, because that is so important. It's such an important aspect of you as a person, and also helping you deliver professionally as well. Who was telling me about this triangle? Was it you?
So the triangle is not my triangle. The triangle is one of my best friends told me about the triangle. Yeah. So the health, family, relationship triangle. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. Everything needs to be in balance. And if something is off balance, it's going to affect all of the other aspects of the triangle. And those are health, your professional life or your career, and family and friends.
You reminded me of another piece of advice that I got. And I was at a little bit of a crossroads with my career at that time. And a friend of mine said to me, I think you really have two pathways that you could go down. You can either figure out what you love and then just dedicate yourself in order to get really good at it. And at some point, you're going to scale up and you're going to achieve the returns that you want. By returns, he meant money. That's the goal, right? And then he said, but there's the other way, right, that you can get there, is set yourself a financial target. and then figure out what the avenue is that's going to get you there, and just pick up those skills. It has nothing to do with whether you're in love with what you're doing or not. You just consistently work in order to get there. And people will say, well, you can't be happy that way. Well, actually, you're going to get to the same level, and you're going to be, you're going to have the lifestyle that you want, which, again, divorcing the two things, your career with your actual life and who you are, you'll have a nice life and you'll enjoy yourself. But in the same way, anything that you keep repeating over and over, well, you're going to fall out of love with it.
It brings me to Cal Newport, this author who is actually a professor at MIT. I think he's like a computer science professor or something. And I'd been reading or listening to, this app, Blinkvist. It summarizes the book in like 15, 20-minute, like sort of short snaps. You can listen to it or you can read it. And he has a couple of books. One is called Deep Work, and the other one is called, I'm just going to find it. It's so good. And it exactly talks about that it's not about following your passion. It's about getting really good at what you do. And that's going to actually eventually give you fulfillment. It's going to give you respect. It's going to give you all of the things that you look for in a fulfilling career. Yeah, it's called So Good They Can't Ignore You. Why Skills Trump Passion in the Quest for Work You Love. So I totally recommend it. And I totally recommend actually this app, Blinkist.
I think I've heard of it before.
I shared it with my neighbor and she's like totally addicted.
Sharing is caring out there.
But anyway, it's time for coffee confessions. I'm going to share with you a real or hypothetical story or a scenario from the workplace. And this is something that can be submitted by a listener, or maybe it's something that's doing the rounds on social media. So either way, I won't tell you which one it is because it doesn't really matter. What matters is the practical tips that we will offer. So please weigh in with your advice and strategies. Here we go. I am a professional working for a large institution. I've been dedicated to my work and department and helped a new employee who joined our team to get started. I offered him guidance and training while leading our team through many difficult periods. I unfortunately had to go off on sick leave for a few months, and halfway through my sick leave, it was announced that my colleague would be promoted to take our boss's job when I would be made to report to him. What do you think about that? I get the feeling it's a female.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that it sounds like a female, because it sounds to me like stories that I've heard in the past where a woman has gone off on maternity leave just before there's a promotion discussion. She comes back and there's someone else that's been promoted, usually a male colleague that was consistently there while she was off on maternity leave. There's no two ways about it, right? It sucks. It's a terrible situation. It's clearly badly managed. The things that I would say is, again, take the emotion out of it. I think it's very painful, especially if this individual was unwell and therefore had a legitimate reason not to be in the office. I think the first thing I would say is, and probably recalling some of the tips that you shared earlier, is take stock of your landscape. What kind of relationships do they have with their leadership team? Can they go and have some conversations, get some feedback, understand how those decisions were made, why those opportunities were, let's say, committed to someone rather than a fairer process being put in place, and then create a plan ultimately. If there is an opportunity to have open dialogue within the team, and there's a plan that's been articulated for this individual's own progress or progression within that team, it might be a case, like, I want to be fair, right? There may be that this individual was put on a temporary basis. It could be that actually they were the best fit. It could be that the organization was in a tight spot and they weren't able to wait for that individual to come back. I mean, take that with a pinch of salt, right? Because you could always wait a little bit longer, right? If it's just weeks or months rather than years. But having taken stock of that situation, there are options, right? Your options are accept your situation, which I never would, but that's a personal choice. It's accept your situation and carry on. Look around at other teams, other opportunities within the organization. Look outside of the organization, because the way that they have dealt with this and the way that they react to that individual expressing concern or discomfort with the situation, it's actually going to determine how you go forward. if they're empathetic, if they want to work with the individual and look for other opportunities or devise a plan together in order to get them into a better place, then that's an organization that maybe you could give them some grace and carry forward. But if they're very closed off to that conversation and they don't care, that's your answer right there, right? It's there's a culture clash. And my recommendation would be to look elsewhere, either elsewhere within the organization, because if it's a large institution, the culture will vary depending on which corner you're in, or look elsewhere. And by the way, I'm going to caveat that. I'm going to say that looking elsewhere, be mindful that sometimes it's better the devil that you know, but a change is as good as a rest, right?
Exactly. The grass is not always greener. But no, good points. So, and just like to summarize a little bit, some of the sort of key tips. Setting clear goals, defining what success looks like for you, and communicating that. So make sure to communicate that with your manager on your regular performance reviews. You can also take ownership maybe of projects or mentor colleagues, and that helps demonstrate an ability to lead, etc. So again, to your point earlier about doing the job that you want to get promoted to. Forging relationships with the right people within your organization that are going to give you those opportunities, keeping record of your wins and your accomplishments. And that's very important because then when you come to performance reviews or those bonus reviews, you are able to clearly articulate, oh, okay, these are my achievements. This is what I've delivered. And therefore, this is why I am asking for XYZ. And of course, the most important is staying positive. Yes, vent. Find a good friend to go out for coffee with or a colleague to kind of banter with at the coffee machine. Just let all of that energy out, refresh, and then you go back in there and you carry on, right? I do have a couple of tools also that might be useful. You probably know about this, LinkedIn Learning. They have quite a lot of courses, a lot of really good information if you want to kind of develop your skills. And it's really good for sort of helping you build that career capital. There is something also called Better Up. It's a coaching platform and it connects professionals with certified coaches for personalized career guidance. And of course, you know Coursera very well. And I mean, that's huge. And there's just so many interesting courses there. You can get certifications or you could just listen in if you're maybe exploring a new topic or area to move into in your career. There's something also called Mind Tools. That was a really good one because it offers articles on improving your workplace skills, like time management, like emotional intelligence. If something happens and you feel really frustrated or you're feeling really passionate about something. And that's a whole other discussion, right? About showing emotions at work and things like that. So I thought that was a really good one. And then there's also something called Workplace Success, and that provides guides and resources for building workplace skills as well and navigating office dynamics, which is like, yeah, we all know about office dynamics. And then Glassdoors, I love going on the Glassdoor just to check the salaries. And then Slack communities. I'm actually starting a little bit in with Slack, but yeah, I don't know, I'm not really gotten into it. But a lot of people love Slack. There's a lot of communities and it caters for professionals seeking career advice and mentorship in specific industries. So, and it's a great networking platform. Thank you so much for being here. It was so lovely to have you. It was really inspiring. And I love that you just stay positive, and I love your candidness, and thank you so much. This is for the listeners. Missing out on a promotion is tough, but it doesn't define your career. It doesn't define who you are. You can reflect, you can learn, and you can take intentional steps. You can turn the setbacks into stepping stones. It is not the last potato, and if it is, it can turn around into bigger successes. So again, Yusra, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and actionable advice. Thank you for reminding us that setbacks can lead to incredible growth.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun being here.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow Your Last Potato and visit our podcast page for more resources, including tools to help you plan your career growth. And if you have your own story about navigating a missed promotion, we'd love to hear it. connect with us on social media or share your thoughts via our website. Until next time, keep building your career capital and turning challenges into opportunities. Thank you so much.